the present breed of leaders that they have been bred in that jihad mentality. It's a conflict situation between two nuclear powers. See, there is a threshold. You have to work within that threshold. There is a dichotomy between the state and the army in Pakistan. So long as the army has first say an upper hand, this problem is not going to end because they don't want the problem to end. Because if they don't feel that they should de-escalate, then I think things can really be serious. They have to retaliate because if they are going to do damage, we have to see that those factors which inflict the damage, they have to be silenced.
Hello and welcome to the New Indian Express. I hope all our viewers are healthy and safe. Tensions between India and Pakistan have not been this high in a long time. After Pakistan's latest attacks on major bordering cities, escalations seem inevitable. But how far will these escalations go? Are we at the risk of a war? To answer these questions, we have with us today India's former Defense Secretary G. Mohan Kumar. Kumar was the Defense Secretary during the Pathankot and Uri terror attacks and also India's surgical strikes. This is what he had to say. From the information you have so far, we all have so
Yeah.
far, what is your analysis of the situation?
The Operation Sindhu was started by these attacks on the terror camps. And I think that was very well executed. It was marvelously executed, very well timed and with a lot of precision and a lot of strength. And the fact that a lot of damage was done and number of persons were killed, I mean, it's something which reveals the perfect execution of that action. India was very careful, of course, not to escalate because we targeted only the terror camps and they were extra careful to see that there were no collateral damages of any kind. They live in a world of lies and deception, especially the Pakistan army and the diplomats. They talk as if there is nothing. There nothing. I was watching an interview of one Pakistani diplomat by a journalist, a foreign journalist, and the denials that come forth, is astounding the way it is happening. Because I can very well understand they are all, puppets of the army. Everything is programmed. They have to say what the army asks them to do. Otherwise, they will all be gone. Pakistan has no other way, to retaliate because it's again a question of their own army's survival game. Because they feel that they are driven to a corner, they can't afford it. That kind of a situation. So they have to retaliate. So they started. India has no terror camps. We don't believe in terrorism. So they had to target the military camps in different places, military installations and all. So that's a natural way of escalating. Whether they have deliberately, they want to escalate the situation and then reap the benefits, I do not really know. But the fact remains that they were desperate and they wanted to show that they were also retaliating. But the problem is there is a dichotomy between the state and the army in Pakistan. It's very, very, very well known. I mean, it's very well studied also. The other day, you heard Pakistan defense minister talking about the dirty trick, the dirty games that have been played. They've been asked to play by the Americans or the Western countries. I think that was a statement of desperation because the the civilian establishment is not in sync with the army. And the army dictates what should be the foreign policy or the security policy. So in that kind of a situation, the army has the upper hand and they will do whatever and it's necessary for their own survival. Because, when people talk about Kashmir being the jugular vein, I mean, it doesn't mean that Kashmir is cut off, they will die. If Kashmir is not in the picture, the army will die. Because the army has Kashmir as its, reason for existence. So that's the way it's happening. So if Kashmir is out of picture, they have their bread and butter is gone, and so that way, probably in the heart of hearts, he probably thinks that it is a jugular vein because they will not exist once it is cut off. Proxy warfare is something which is part of the DNA, the Pak Army's DNA, and unless the army is disbanded, when the army is totally humiliated, they're not going to stop the and then the civilians have to restore their power. They have to come back. That's how the situation remains now. So long as the army has the first say an upper hand, this problem is not going to end because they don't want the problem to end.
So you mentioned something important that Pakistan is not about to stop. It will continue its escalation because the military needs it, right? On the other hand, India is talking to all other countries who are asking India and Pakistan both to de-escalate.
Yes,
So
yes.
what are the options left before Delhi right now?
They see the thing is that it's a conflict situation between two nuclear powers. See, there is a threshold. You have to work within that threshold because each country has its own nuclear doctrine. People say, now to what extent one can go before you resort to something desperate. But I'm sure we are very far away from that. But so, what is the space that is available within that? Because Pakistan is a country which is, I mean, they have Islamic doctrines and they believe in jihads, and more so because I think the present breed of leaders that they have, they have been bred in that uh, jihad mentality because most of them have matured and become senior leaders. They were training or maybe junior officers when Ziaul Haq was Islamizing the army at that point of time, say in the 80s. So I think the present chief also probably one of those persons who came through that process. And for them, now jihad has become a part and parcel. It's an integral part of their whole strategy. So they don't mind whether it's civilians who are killed or army men who are killed, or they just only want to kill just for jihad. So this is something which is uh, which will actually give them the energy to move forward. So the thing is that India, I think, as far as we are concerned, I think uh, we will be retaliating whenever this action comes from Pakistan. Whatever they are doing, we have to retaliate because if they are going to do damage, we have to see that those factors which inflict the damage they have to be silenced. So India's action will be determined by what they are doing. I mean, that's what we have been doing so far because we ultimately it will depend on what they are really going to do. Because if they realize their folly and if they step back, saying that let us de-escalate, I think that will be wiser for them to do. Because if they don't feel that they should de-escalate, then I think things can really become serious. Probably I have a feeling that they themselves will de-escalate after some time. They'll be forced to
Okay.
de-escalate.
You feel this is going to stop after a point then, that Pakistan will be forced to de-escalate.
Well, I think, see, as a rule, maybe a conventional war, and of course, you take a case of Ukraine or Russia, see, one of them is a nuclear power. So they can afford to do it as long as possible. But then two nuclear powers are working, fighting. There should be conventional war has limited possibilities. It will not move beyond a particular time. So it will go on and on. But in the past also, we have seen, say, we have gone on for 15 days, 20 days, 25 days. I don't know what's going to happen now because there's not been a full-fledged war so far because of the armed forces, the land forces they have not moved, and India has also not really, we have only responded to what has happened. So we are trying to disable their systems, or so that they won't escalate it further.
I will ask a question just to understand that you saw it directly when Uri happened, when the surgical
Yeah.
strike was carried out, and that was also a operation perfect to the T, like Operation Sindoor. It was carried out perfectly.
Yeah.
So why is it that back then there was no escalation after that from Pakistan's end, but now it is there? Why did that happen? Why did the military escalate now?
I think the operations at that time, for even the surgical strike, it was a very quickly executed operation. So where in the night time, they went and destroyed some of their camps, and they came back. In Balakot also, they went and bombed. So there were a lot of controversy about what kind of damage was done or what. See, nobody could. In fact, we also could not produce sufficient proof at that time. See, what really happened. But this time it is so decisive and it's so clear. They have really the damage has been very, very severely. Damage has been inflicted on the camps. You have seen the funerals, and And that also shows that the funeral also show that Pak army is with the terrorists. I mean, see, that's the way it's going on. So there is proof for India now to show the entire world that Pak army has participated in the funeral of these people who have been killed by these terror camp attacks. And so they are very much part of it. Maybe they can show the FATF or somebody next time. But this time it was very much, and Pakistan was isolated also. Like, and this time the action was quick and very effective. And it was in scale, I think it was much larger than the last one. So, and probably they
That is
lost some of their key people also. Like Masood as a brother who was a kingpin of that 814 hijacking and all kinds of things. And obviously, so many of his associates have been liquidated. So this is something big, something of a big loss for them.
Do you think we will enter a phase of full-fledged war before we reach that point where we can force them to de-escalate?
See, I cannot read the strategy of the armed forces, how they what they want to do, what kind of work they mean they have. No, I have no access to that. But I think it's also an opportunity for the Indian armed forces to inflict maximum damage. India will have to teach them now that there is a heavy cost for this action of terrorism, see, of persisting on terrorism. There's a huge cost that they will have to pay. Internal security is at the lowest. I mean, there's so much of conflict happening in that country. Second, they economically they are broke. They will not be able to manage their affairs, or they can't even run a war for a. So Pakistan should internally realize, the civilian administration should also realize that they cannot afford to have a war. And the only beneficiary of this war is going to be the armed forces, because they are going to benefit, because they will make their demands more and more demands. They will make more, for more privileges, more money, and they can even capture power. I mean, see, that's the way things go. So one has to be, so that's their situation, because it's not like India's situation. India is a full-fledged democracy. Decisions are made by the people and the representatives and the government, but there it's different. So I really do not know how many of the Pakistani members of the Pakistani government are with the army on this, whether they are really supporting the armed forces, because it's a very desperate game, because this has been army's game, and everybody has been somehow willingly or unwillingly, they have been following that. I do not know in this case whether there will be external pressures from the Arab countries. Or they may, because they have good relations with India also. They would like India and Pakistan fighting, so they may intervene or they say something. Then Pakistan is also another very important thing, is Pakistan is also desperately in need of money, because they have been approaching IMF. Now, if IMF asks them questions, that why do you give them money to be burned off in a war or something? You're definitely going to burn it off in fighting a war with India. So they won't have any answers to give, and so naturally, they'll have a lot of circumstances that will pressure them to de-escalate, and that should be our
Right.
objective also, right?
Yes, the objective should be to de-escalate, and we hope that it happens soon from Pakistan's end. And on that note, we will end the interview. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.